Hello, Fat Puppy here. I am in an old slave cemetery. This is a cemetery, I don't know how old it is. Being as a slave cemetery, I really have no way of knowing. I do know, however, that the stones that show themselves here, the oldest are maybe the 1930s, which doesn't sound that old. But I know the gentleman that owns this land. It's been in his family since I think around 1802. So his family's had this land for over 200 years. And at one time it was part of a huge plantation. And the family has managed to keep some of the land in the family. He owns, I don't know, I think maybe 200 acres. He has a cousin that owns another 150, another one owns 200. I think at one time it was 10,000 acres. It was a huge plantation. And so this was their slave cemetery. This is where the slaves buried their dead at. Now, the story behind this, you hear a lot of traffic noise because this cemetery is hidden in plain sight. It's a major road right there. This is in a swamp, actually. It's a little knoll rising up out of the swamp. It's a little hill. And as a matter of fact, right over there, as a matter of fact, there's a steep drop off. And I wonder if that might be erosion. So I went over and looked, and I don't see anything, like the ends of caskets or anything like that sticking out. I'm not going to do a lot of exploring today because it's summertime and copperhead snakes have been bad this year. So I'm not going to do a lot of stepping around. I'm just going to kind of highlight some things. One thing, I talked to the guy that owns this land. I've known him for about 20 years. Casually, we're not like best of friends or anything like that. And there might be 20 stones here. I've counted them before, and I think it was around 18 or 20. But he said that he remembers when this hill was covered by wooden crosses. He said well over 100, maybe even 200. The last burial here, so the slaves kept, the descendants of the slaves kept using this cemetery into the mid-1950s. And he said he's seen the last funeral, that they came on a horse-drawn wagon and buried their dead here. After that, they started another cemetery about another mile away, the descendants of those slaves, and that's where they bury their dead at now. This place is just rich with history. This is an area I'm very familiar with. And he told me that the highway there, which I'm not going to name because this is private land, and he doesn't want people just all over this land, and I don't blame him a bit. He knows that I come up here and the place looks like it could be cleaned up. And I asked him about that. And he said he has been asked about that. And he said that basically the people that planted these plants here, there are plantings here. And when you look around, you can see the plantings. Especially in springtime, you see all kind of flowers. But in the heat of the summer, they tend to die off. And he just doesn't want to disturb anything, even enough to clean it up. The people whose descendants are buried, or ancestors are buried here, they are aware of it. Some of them still come up here. And even though it's, 70 years, I guess now? 60, since anybody's been buried here. So it's probably becoming a faded memory. But he just doesn't want people up here stomping all over this land, and ghost hunters, and and people like that. He's a very nice fellow. I think he has nothing but honor in mind. His dad was a major civil rights leader that was written about by Martin Luther King Jr. And so what I'm going to do is, I think I've given you a good history. Oh, when they built that road out there, initially it was in 1910, and it was way over there. And then 1930, they decided they needed another road, that it was too much traffic going back and forth. So they built another road beside it. So what you have is 2 lanes going that way, a median, and then 2 lanes going this way. Well, when they dug into the hill, they thought they were past the graveyard. When they dug into the hill, they hit the tip of a casket, which caused a huge uproar, as it should have. I mean, you can only imagine. And I'm sure they made adjustments and stuff. But when you come down this road, you can see where, out of nowhere, in the middle of a swamp, there's kind of a hill, and you just go on, you don't think nothing about it. Look, I've been up and down that road hundreds and hundreds of times and not know there's a cemetery in plain hidden. How's that? In sight. If the sun is sitting over there, it hits one of these tombstones just right where it just glows orange. That's the only way you know anything was here. I lived here for years and years and years in this area and did not even know that there's a cemetery here. So I'm going to start showing you a couple of things, and then I'm going to end it. This is not going to be a long video. I'll give you a panoramic view. There's a lot of plantings like that, whatever kind of grass that is. See, there's more right there. You don't see a lot of tombstones. I think in the wintertime I come up and counted, and there are only 18 tombstones. But like the gentleman told me, when he was younger, he said there's well over 100, possibly 200 wooden crosses up here. By the way, I don't know what deal is that PVC pipe. I'm thinking someone brought that up here to mark where some of their people are. Else that I noticed, there are a lot of, I don't know if you can tell or not, but there are a lot of depressed spots. I especially knew that there was more people buried here than what the tombstones would indicate. There are deep spots. These are where they put the tombs, or I'm sorry, the caskets, and then the dirt settled, and you know, wooden caskets, they probably rotted, and then the dirt settled in even more. Actually, it's kind of crazy. There's a deep drop off here. This is what I mean right here. It's probably at least a 20-foot drop, and that down there would be marsh if it had been recently rained. It's the tombstone of Alex Toney, who was born in 1862 and died in 1938. Note the grass, or whatever that is that's growing there. And a lot of these, they were born into slavery. 1862, they may not have lived in slavery, but they were certainly born into it. I don't know if you can tell by this video, that's a sunk in spot. And as a matter of fact, the tombstone is basically falling down into the grave. This gives you a little bit better idea what I'm talking about. The tombstone basically kind of falling into the grave of this individual. The other side of the hill, where it basically falls off into the swampy area. Much of that you can see. You can certainly see more in wintertime. This is about legacy. It says Miss Virginia Mitchell died November 20, 1947. The mother of 13 children, 72 grandchildren, and 52 great-grandchildren. You know, if you think about it, she was buried in 1947. She was an old lady then. Not quite sure how old, it don't say, but she had great-grandchildren. So in 1947, her great-grandchildren would now be in their 70s if they were babies then. So she's gone. The 13 children are gone. The 72 grandchildren are probably gone. And the 52 great-grandchildren, if they're not all gone, they're on the way out. This Miss Mitchell may not even be a memory anymore, which is kind of sad when you think about it, but you know, such is life. That's just how it goes. This is the stone that'll get your attention when you're on the road if you happen to look up here. When the sun is setting, it glows like a bright orange reflecting the sunlight. This is Ada, the wife of Nelson Toney, who was born in 1905 and died in 1936. This shines like a beacon if you just look up this way.